What's up, world? It's your boy Jaron Ikner back again for another video for Starstruck TV. I know it's been a while. It's been a while. Go see my last review of Nas's first King Disease. He's already dropped the second one since then. And yes, I'll probably do a review. I know I'm a little late on that, but I have some thoughts on that as well. But I digress. As you can see, I'm in a brand new studio, brand new situation. We're still under construction and we have lots of new content coming. But I had to hop on here and talk to you guys because, as you guys probably know by now, Donda has dropped. Yes, it has been years at this point. Numerous leaks, numerous versions of songs, live performances, people ascending out of stadiums, lighting themselves on fire, divorces. There's been a whole storied history leading up to this album. Arguably, probably one of the best rollouts that Kanye has ever done. One thing that I will say about this project is that it's kind of like a combination of a variety of everything he's ever done, and this album kind of has a lot of finality behind it, and I will probably dive deeper into that later. This is all free thought, so we'll see if I can remember where I was going with that, but I want to talk more about this album because that's why you guys are here. So, as you guys may know by now, there are actually three versions of this album. As Kanye was going around performing these albums, he did two performances at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and then he did a final performance at Soldier Field in Chicago. Each version of these albums had differences, and basically what was happening was that after every release, Mike Dean actually would hop on Discord and ask people questions and be like, hey, what do you guys think about Hurricane, or what do you think about this track, which version did you like better, etc., and so forth. And seemingly Mike Dean would take this feedback and go back to Kanye and his team and rework the album. There's a lot to digest over the last month or so with these numerous releases. I think I'm going to actually start. I need to take a quick drink real quick. 1 second, hold on. There we go. That's better. So we'll start with the actual official release because that's the version that came out. So this version, is actually almost 2 hours long. It features part two versions of particular songs that I don't think are deemed necessary. I have a lot of theories behind that. I think that has to mostly do with padding the album and making sure that the numbers are up, because some of these things aren't logical. For example, the version of Jail that features, there's a version that features Jay-Z, and then famously, just recently, there's a version that features The Baby where he addresses a lot of his recent controversy. There's no discernible difference between these songs other than the addition of the new whoever's rapping on the second verse. Theoretically, Kanye could have put them both on the same track. Maybe there was some moralistic issues. Maybe Jay-Z didn't want that to happen. But he called the Jail Part 2 instead of the remix. There's a lot of weird instances like this on this album. And my theory has to do with mostly padding this album for numbers, for streams, etc., and so forth. This, like I said, this album comes in at 27 tracks with you when you add the 4 remixes on there. We have 27 tracks in this album. And if we're talking about the competition between him and Drake, we don't know how many tracks are on Certified Lover Boy, but it's probably not 27. So from this, we're about to get off on tangent real quick. But when it comes to streaming, the more streams you get, the more numbers you have, and the more whatever. But this is a cheat code that artists have been using a lot. Chris Brown famously dropped an album that had 40 songs on it. Migos' last album, Culture 2, had like a billion songs on it. And the idea is that even just to get through one listen of the album is going to be more record sales than someone who has less songs on their album. So I think a lot of this is a strategy, because honestly, he could have just released a different version of this album with those songs on there if he was trying to do something else. So interesting move. But anyways, back to the album. That's why you guys are here. Off the Grid is just incredible. It's probably one of the best Kanye West songs that we've gotten in recent years. His verse on there is stellar. The features, although I'm not the biggest fan of Playboy Cardi's verse, especially in the context of the song, 5 Foreign kills it, and Kanye's verse is just incredible. It's probably my favorite song on the album overall. The grand scheme of the album, that's the one I keep going back to for sure. And then there's Hurricane. Man, oh man, Hurricane. Now Kanye West stands out there. We have a very strong connection to the song. Some of you guys that are watching this video probably don't know the entire history of this song, but there are actually multiple versions. We're talking like maybe 30, 40 versions of this song floating around on the internet. The original version was leaked on Kanye's Instagram a couple years ago at this point. I think like a year and a half ago at this point. And that version featured Ant Clemens. Since then, when the Yandi leak started hitting the internet, all these different versions came out. I think there's a version with Big Sean. There's a version with different Kanye verses. There's versions with different chorus arrangements. There's versions with different beat arrangements. Like I said, there's a billion versions of this song out here. And it was storied to be one of Kanye's most anticipated songs of his career. Basically because of the hype behind it, etc., so forth. And so when we finally get the version that's now out, I'm now looking at it on my YouTube music account. It's just a little weird because I know this version is, in itself, it's an incredible song. Like I like the song for what it is. Like The Weeknd does this thing. Lil Baby's verse is incredible. Kanye's verse is cool, but when you compare it to the other hurricanes that we know that exist out there, it's kind of mid. It's kind of mid, a little mid. And I think a lot of that, it's like overproduced. I think one of the greatest things about the original version of Hurricane is that it sounded a lot more in the moment, a lot more urgency behind it, especially with Kanye's verse, drop the wave, when it's not me run the wave. Like the energy is just a lot different. This version is like a lot more polished, a lot more majestic, a lot more grandiose. I mean, we had The Weeknd talking about lightning strikes on beaches and the baby doing his thing, a little baby, sorry, doing his thing, and it's not a bad song at all whatsoever, but it's just different. And the difference is like it's a little bit of a dissonance there for me because I have a couple versions of Hurricane on my phone that I listen to, and then I have this version that is such a beautiful song and such a great combination and great collaboration of these artists, but it just doesn't do what the original version does. And this actually just reminded me that Kanye did this before with his song Home. And Home, the original version of Home that features John Legend, that got leaked to the internet before College Dropout came out, that is still to this day one of my favorite Kanye West songs. That song got turned into Homecoming featuring Chris Martin, which is still a great song, still a beautiful song, but it just didn't hit the same as Home from Kanye West. If you're a Kanye West fan, you haven't heard Home, go check it out. It's literally one of his best songs I ever heard to this day, son. Anyways, so that's my little rant about Hurricane. But otherwise, songs like Praise God, Junior Watanabe, what else is on there? Remote, all these high energy songs that are on this album, I love all of them. I think that was kind of what was missing from Jesus is King, was that there was a lack of energy behind a lot of the songs. Like it really did just feel like you were going to church and you had the Sunday service choir just kind of singing, which it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't what we needed from a Kanye West album. From a Kanye West album, typically we want high energy, head knocking stuff, and this first half of this album delivers that entirely. And one thing that was interesting about these different versions of the Kanye West performances that we got was he switched the order of the songs, and I think the sequencing on this version is by far the best sequencing that we have of this. I do think I would change some things around, but this is just the artistic side of me being like, I would probably put this song in front of this song. But the sequencing on this song on this album works a lot better than previous versions of the album. But with that said, this is very interesting how this all came together, because of the fact that another example is Jesus Lord. So the original version of Jesus Lord features Kanye West with a crazy, insanely long verse, and then you have Jay Electronica, whose verse is just bonkers. It's Jay Electronica, so that's what he does. The verses is out of control, and then you have the Locks, and the Locks' verses are solid. They're not like as holistic as the other two verses, but they're still great verses. And then you have a pretty empowering speech by Larry Hoover Jr., who basically thanking Kanye for freeing his father. And this song is 11 minutes long. This is the original version of the song. With that said, I guess the consensus was is that the Locks needed to be cut from this song. And so the version that we get on this album, at least part one, is just Jay Electronica with his incredible verse and then the Larry Hoover speech. But then we also get part two on there that is the same two verses with Kanye and Jay Electronica, and then they throw the Locks back on there, and the song is 11 minutes. And it's like, you should just put parts two on there and just run with that. Like, that's how I think that he's doing a lot of this for the numbers and padding, because of the number of tracks and the fact that people are going to want to hear that Locks verses, and if you want to hear it, then you got to go listen to part two. It's kind of, it's an interesting move, and I think we're definitely seeing some new ways to manipulate the numbers. And that's the best way I'll describe it at this point. And we'll see how this plays out when the numbers come out, because now we're really focused on these numbers for some reason, because the whole beef between Drake and Kanye, and apparently Drake's dropping on Friday, and et cetera, so forth. But I digress once again. This is gonna be a long review, y'all. I'm trying to do my best here. My favorite production on here is probably Heaven and Hell. That beat is just, it is holistic, you know what I'm saying, in a different way than what we expect from Kanye. I mean, it has those driving drums, Kanye doing this thing on there, but then those vocals come in with the, it is good stuff, man. That's probably my favorite beat on the album. I think the flows could have been stronger, it could have been a longer song. It would have been cool to get a feature on there. But Kanye did his thing on that. And I think after this point, for me, the album kind of tapers off a little bit, because we do get to, like, it's almost like two separate albums, to be honest, with that being like the shifting point for a new album. Because after that, the album does get more gospel-y in terms of tone, in terms of content, in terms of direction. Not to say that they're not knocking tracks, but everything before there definitely has a higher energy to it, like a lot more celebratory type of music, where the second half is a lot more gospel-y, kind of vibing out at the church type of vibe to it. And I'm not mad at that, but I just think that this album overall is bloated, and it would have been cool if he just split this up into two albums, Donda Part 1, Donda Part 2. That, I think that would have been the best way to drop this if he was trying to do this. But I also know that he's trying to play the numbers game, and like I said, this whole album is 27 tracks long, so it's a lot. And I'm trying to really still digest this album. But what I like about this album, sonically speaking, is that it does feel like a combination of all these different Kanye West albums over the last year. Like, we have aesthetics that remind me of The Life of Pablo. We have aesthetics that remind me of Yeezus. There's some aesthetics on there that remind me of Late Registration and Graduation. It's like, this album almost feels like it's a culmination of all Kanye's sounds, and it has a lot of finality behind it, because I feel like this might be Kanye's last album to a degree. And what I mean by that is that this album, first of all, we already know that Kanye has been going through crazy label drama. We've seen him put his entire contract all over the internet, yada, yada, yada. A lot of theories behind that was the fact that by him doing that, he's kind of voiding his contract in a lot of ways for NDA, et cetera, so forth. But Donda was already in the works before all that happened, meaning that the album was due no matter what. But he hasn't really been super vocal about this, but Kanye actually has a new record label. It's called Yeezy Sound. There are several artists on it already, and I definitely believe that we're going to see a switch from Kanye being under Def Jam with Good Music, or perhaps he will still run Good Music but just not release music under Good Music anymore, and start releasing music under Yeezy Sound. That's why I feel like this album has a lot of finality to it. I think that's also what has to do with the number of tracks on this album. I think it's a label thing. I think that he has to hit his mark, because we all know that in his contract he's supposed to be doing X this. He's supposed to be releasing a certain amount of music every year, etc. So forth. And this album may have fulfilled a lot of those obligations on this album to his contract. And like I said, he does have the Easy Sound, which is a brand new label. You can look this up. He's been kind of cultivating this label for a minute, and don't be surprised if you hear some type of announcement where it's like, oh, Kanye West is leaving Def Jam. And that seems to be a trend that's happening in hip hop. And maybe I'll say that for another video, but artists are starting to break away from these traditional record label setups. You know, you just had Kendrick Lamar make an announcement saying that he's leaving TDE, and then on his new song with Baby Keem, you're seeing the PG Lang flag fly everywhere. That's his team. That's his brand new label. You know, Jay-Z's famously and fiercely independent. You're starting to see these trends of artists just kind of pulling away from that engine, especially if you're on the level of a Kanye West, where you don't need that engine anymore, and you can command the attention of the world just by tweeting and doing whatever. You don't need the publicity and the marketing that these labels have to offer when you get to a certain level. And so that's kind of one of my grand theories behind this, is that the label, Def Jam or whoever, they need this album a lot more than Kanye does. And I think that had a lot to do with his rollout, to where the label was putting a lot of pressure on him to do certain things. You know, put these collabs together. Maybe you should put The Weeknd on here, yada yada yada. To a degree, but also to the point where Kanye's probably like, I'm gonna do what I want, and I'm gonna, do what I get to get this hype up. I'm gonna do these shows, etc., so forth, bring these people out, and after that, it's on y'all to do what you need to do. Here are all these tracks, etc., so forth. Now, this is just a theory. I obviously don't have a lot of insight on this, but I definitely think that this might be the last album that we get under the Def Jam conglomerate in good music. I definitely think that he's going to do Easy Sound with his own label and his own funding from here on out. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. But I digress once again. I told you this is going to be a long review and there's going to be some tangents. I apologize, but also I do not. Anywho, overall, this album is not bad. Matter of fact, I would say it's Kanye's best album in years. It's better than Ye. It's better than Jesus is King. I wouldn't say it's better than Kids See Ghosts, but it's pretty much close. Pretty close. There are some incredible songs on here. There are a few songs on here that is some of the best music that Kanye West has ever done, and some of the best rapping that Kanye has ever done. There are a few weird moments. Shout out to the Glob Blob meme that somehow still made the album. But Kanye is also known to keep a sense of humor in the things that he does. It's part of his appeal, that's what makes Kanye Kanye. And also there's a certain era of mystery that Kanye likes to preserve, and that's kind of what keeps him, keeps us listening to him and keep watching every move that he makes, because he goes into this mystery mode where it's like, oh, I'm gonna, what's this? And I'm gonna throw a meme on there from 3 years ago and see how the people react. And he's all about reactions. That's really what this whole rollout was about, was how do the people react to the music, and how can we change it? And it's actually kind of brilliant in the grand scheme of things when you look at how music is evolving. This is post-pandemic, and Kanye already made millions of dollars off this album before this album released. I think he did something like $30 million. Now, from a streaming perspective, right, like $30 million in the streams is a lot of streams, man. I'm not gonna do the math real quick. Maybe I can. Let's see. 30 million streams is a lot. Or sorry, $30 million in streams is a lot of streaming. Like, that's billions of streams. And to be honest, Kanye's probably not going to get billions of streams on this album, because one, streaming is just so overly saturated that to the point where you just aren't able to cultivate that much attention. These artists don't make money off of streaming, they make money off of touring. And we're seeing that with Kanye West, in the sense that he is over here already charging people for merchandise, and doing these live release parties in these massive stadiums and pulling in millions of dollars, and the album hasn't even come out yet. When the album comes out, the streams matter less because we've already heard the album, we've already digested it, and now we get to pick and choose how this album is played on our hard drive, anyways, which is what we're already doing with music as is. When albums come out, you already take your favorite music and you put it on certain playlists, and you create your own playlist. So the concept of the album as a whole is kind of dated, but still gotta drop albums because that's still the format and that's still how we're doing it. But when you do it in the format where the people are involved in the process of creation, there's a certain connection that we have. Like we could get to see the evolution of these songs. Like for example, my example with Hurricane earlier, we saw that evolution of that song come out, and now that's the final product. But I guarantee you, there's going to be people who take the original version of Hurricane and put it in their playlist and have their own version of it. And that's kind of beauty of music and beauty of art, because this is all about how the music makes us feel. And I don't think Kanye has perfected this new rollout, but someone will. Someone is going to take what Kanye is doing and do it better, in terms of the presentation and the rollout. Like Taylor Swift or someone like that is going to start doing pre-release album events and concerts and sell out and make millions of dollars before the album even comes out. Now, what's interesting about that is that I'm not sure how that works out on the record sales aspect of it, because the live music is being played and being streamed. But I guess we're gonna find out. But this is a good place to stop. This review is a little bit longer than usual. Actually, it's twice as long as usual. But I figure I'd give you guys a nice juicy one because it's been a while since we've done this. But as I said at the top of the video, we are coming back with new content, new stuff, all kinds of just new. I got a movie coming out here soon. New album, The Setting Sun. Arizona Kanye 4 is out right now, so if you want to listen to that, I'll put it in the comment section. But yeah, we're back, bitch. One love. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. Peace.